Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Kevin Coyne with the Venture Outfitter. Losing my voice a little bit. I have a cold that came from being on the flight home. So I'm going to do my best with my hot coffee and get through today's community conversation. Got a bunch of different things to share with you on today's Venture Outfitter. We've got a lot of activities that have been happening and want to make sure that we share. And I decided I kind of wanted to do, it's funny, now I sound like I'm in high school again. Oh, well, pobrecito de mí. So, yeah, here at the Venture Outfitter, part of what we're here to do with each other is to help each other build our ventures. And today I'm going to spend a little bit more time on, in the age of AI that's opening up, I want to really talk about more about our personal responsibilities and what's going to change as things accelerate. But we'll hop into that in a second. Thank you to DualWorks for sponsoring our studio. DualWorks is a co-working location in the middle of Austin. If you look at the overall map, they are right damn snap in the middle. And the great thing about them is there's a lot of different entrepreneurs from around the world that have either closed door offices, co-working, or a mailbox here. They will really configure around your needs because of how they work. Linda Blackman, who is Venture Force 17, runs this place. And I really appreciate the impact that she has on the Tech Ranch community. In the coming soon section, we were just talking to Christia before we were recording. Christia is going to be talking about creativity on April 20th. And then we're going to have some activities with North American Supply Chain with Venture Connections. Venture Connections is one of the organizations that's helping really drive a lot of supply chain dynamics between United States and Mexico and Canada too, a little bit in Europe as well. Excuse me as I cough. Yeah. So I usually don't catch anything. But on this last flight back from Lithuania last week, I think I caught something. So thankfully, it's not the vid. But oh well. Today, we're going to have a community conversation. But before we do that, I kind of thought that there was a little bit more of the story from Lithuania. Last week, we were doing live from Lithuania. And there's so much stuff, so much video footage and stuff like that and activities that I thought that really, for my part of the community conversation, I would actually say a little bit more about what I saw. And so everyone knows that we had 2 weeks of really intense South by Southwest activities. I think I myself spoke twice a day, at least for 8 days in a row. And then quickly, took a day off and went to Vilnius, Lithuania, where I've been for the last few weeks or last week, and it feels like weeks just because there was so much activity. I thought as part of my contribution, and we're going to hear from several different people today, I'm hoping that everyone in the studio audience at least wants to do one shout out for everyone else that's watching online. And if you're watching online, I'm going to do my best to follow today's conversation, just because a lot of times online, a lot of you are watching the streams and you can't because you're not able to join the Zoom for whatever reason. That's fine. But the main thing is we'd like to keep, especially as we take the next few steps, which will include doing most everything through Restream, where we're interacting with the streams as the primary point of interaction. And we kind of want to get used to hearing from you. So especially as we talk about this. But Vilnius, this is my third trip to Vilnius. I was there twice in 2018. And it's an absolutely beautiful European city. And there's some very special things about it that I want to make sure that I share with you today. But so some of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, share some photos, share some kind of give you a little bit of a sense of the city. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the conference and then why the conference exists. Then we'll hop in and talk about some really important philosophical issues that I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs are like, hey, let's just talk about making money. And I really want to challenge that. I've always been a challenge for that. Because even though I've been, a technologist, I've been a technology entrepreneur for 30 years. And I've disrupted 6 different markets during that time. Me and my teams have disrupted 6 different markets, and lots of job loss and all sorts of stuff created by tools that I built. And nothing against that, right? I believe in, there's a guy named Schumacher that says that entrepreneurship is the act of creative destruction. But we're at a point that I think ethic is going to be even more important. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that in at least my part of the community discussion. But before we do that, let's look at some cool photos. So there's this one theater that I really wanted to go. We didn't get to go to, but they had some really cool videos. Yes, this is a video of lights in the rain. Pretty interesting. The city is absolutely beautiful. Here's just a few other photos to give you kind of a sense of the feelings. And just, the middle photo is just, it was just like this picturesque street, just like older buildings, really a lot of beauty, a lot of history there. I was there for a conference called, it used to be called Economicos, but it's now called the Davos of Lithuania. And as one of the speakers, I had just given a speech before the photo on the right. What the photo on the right represents is this is a panel. I had given a speech about what is the sentiment in the US concerning startups and investment climate and stuff like that. And so where we went from there was to really start talking about what do we think is about to happen with the market. And, I'm no expert at the market. I don't consider myself a futurist. I do consider myself a visionary, which there's a big difference between the two. But I kind of shared what I thought was happening about how in some ways we're slowing down and in some ways we're accelerating beyond people's capability of really seeing what the technologies are about to start doing. And got to meet with this gentleman. His name is Eduardas Igregas, and I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but it was real honored to do this. The conference was started by him. He started a magazine called Valstube. And then out of this guy is a true patriot, like a true Lithuanian patriot. And it's really interesting to have breakfast with him in the morning that you see. This is the morning after the conference. And I was really honored that he took time out of his schedule to meet with me because, he had quite literally hundreds of speakers and stuff like that. But it was really cool to actually get to interact with a guy that is truly operating as a patriot. He's an entrepreneur who's driving information because a lot of times people forget about what's going on. Now, in the case of Lithuania, though, Lithuania is definitely on the front lines. And part of the conference, if you see on the main stage with the middle photo there, was dedicated to the reality of what's happening in Ukraine. And it was palatable to feel the concern in the streets. You saw lots of flags for Ukrainian support, but then myself and Cami actually got to spend some time with different people. There was a couple different speakers that we got to spend time with. 2 of them were moms, and it was just palatable to be able to see these mothers' concerns for their children as their neighbor to the east, Russia, has invaded Ukraine, about the fear that, again, Lithuania was invaded by the Nazis and then was invaded by the Soviets and has had their independence from the Soviet Union since 91. It was definitely palatable to feel not just the support for Ukraine, but the concern about what's there. And I think that part of what I want to do, since part of the target, obviously, we've had up to 15 different countries represented by these conversations on, in Zoom and stuff like that. Part of the thing, though, that I'm really concerned with is this idea that in America, we're so isolated from these type of concerns. We don't see them in the way that someone on the front lines would see here. And I have to point to this because a lot of times, because President Biden is supporting it, there are also some people that are very far on the right that don't realize that, they're just against whatever Biden's doing. And my concern for that is, I think that there's balance that's always needed in American politics, right and left. I've always been a centrist. I always will be. But there's a hardliner, like if Ronald Reagan was still around, I just want to point out that the Ukrainians are doing some really important work, and it's important from the hardline point of view of the United States that we should be looking at this, because really there's no reason that there should be war in Europe right now. And it's a tragedy. And I won't spend very much more time on it, other than I do have to say that there's wide evidence of war crimes that are happening in Ukraine. In fact, one of the things that was very visible is this is a ambulance that was put in one of the squares of in Vilnius that myself and Cammie, my girlfriend, actually got to walk by. And one of the things that's really easy to see is if you look at these bullet holes and where they're aimed at the driver who's driving a Red Cross vehicle. This is an ambulance that was there. You can, hear more about other war crimes and stuff like that. But if you're not aware of this, it's time to wake up. As entrepreneurs, we need to be aware of our own ethic and our own morals, our own values. And it's important that we actually have this, that we actually really frame this in and understand what the hell is going on in the world. And so you can read about war crimes. One of the war crimes that is listed, there's like, if you bomb civilians, that's a war crime. If you take out people who are doing medical support, that is a war crime. And this was clear evidence of that, that I got to see with my own two eyes. I took those photos right there myself. There's also very solemn things that were happening. This is in Lukisas Square. And you can't tell that this is late at night. I guess this is because my iPhone, makes it look like it's really bright out. But that's a really dark area that has a memorial to the freedom fighters of Lithuania. And then also there are flowers laid for the Ukrainians as well. And so if you're so supportive, I would actually just say that at some point later today, I hope that you take a moment to think about the people that are needlessly dying because of this war and the war that needs to be stopped. In support of that, one of our members based out of Prague has started something called Invest in Bravery. It's going to be on the 17th and 18th of April, and then for manufacturing, and on the 19th as well for IT. This is going to be in Kyiv. I was invited to be a speaker, and right now, because I've been scrambling and not caught up on a lot of things, I'm going to hold off. It's not that I'm concerned about going to Kyiv as much as I'm concerned with the idea of just getting all the basics of the business that then supports these type of activities in place. But we are supporting this, and I want to make sure that you get to hear this short video from the Invest in Bravery group. This is David Nichols, based out of Prague, and his company Core Technologies. And so let's watch this video really quick that tells us a little bit about what's going to happen at this conference. So like it said, President Volodymyr Zelensky, he just said specifically this is an investment in global security and democracy. So those are really big ideas, and those are really big ideas. The thing that I actually want to challenge each one of you as a entrepreneur, though, is to get really clear about what your values are, to get really clear about what your ethic is. One of the things that I like about the community that we've built together is this idea that we're driven by values and visions for the future, not just by the dollar. And there's nothing wrong with going after dollars. But a lot of times, it's really simple to see how some entrepreneurs have let go of their ethic and let go of their values and let go of their morals and just focused on the dollar and forgotten about other stuff. And I think the tools that are coming now that we can easily employ have a way of dealing with that in a different level than ever before. So there will be more information on the events calendar. I don't know if Jello's gotten a post this yet on the Tech Ranch events calendar, but if you're looking for more information about the conference, and I'm not sure exactly how we're going to participate at this point because I haven't gotten a hold of David, because last time I talked to him when I was in Lithuania, he was in Taiwan fomenting support in Taiwan for this Ukrainian activities. So, but there will be a lot of support there. The other thing to do is to make sure that we're paying attention to our own history. Now, one of the things that I liked about one of the other squares was on one of the town squares in Vilnius, is they actually had these placards that talked about the history, what actually happened in Lithuania. I did not know that over 200,000 Jews were slaughtered by the Nazis. I didn't know that history. I knew about the Holocaust, but I didn't know about the specifics there. It was interesting to hear about that here, and some of the other activities that happened in Poland, some of the other activities that happened in Norway. And the main thing to do is, if you're not a student of history, when we start talking about concepts that regard ethics and morals and values, I think it's critical to do so, because each one of you is at a moment in your entrepreneurial history that tools are going to be laid in front of you, and you can decide what you're going to do with them. It's really easy I've been saying this for a long time, but now people see Chat GPT 4.0 and they're like, what could I do with this in a malicious kind of way to take that? And I could show you, I've been playing around with it just to understand is what I've been predicting for years possible. And I've got some examples that, are kind of interesting. Maybe we'll go through them at some point during this program. I don't know, but it's interesting to think about. Know your history, know your values, know why you're building the businesses you're building. And then, let me encourage some of you to build businesses that actually protect people, because we're gonna need more paladins in the world. What are the paladins? Paladin is the knight that actually protects the people. I think that that's going to be an important thing for entrepreneurs going into the future. The main thing there is that's a critical piece. So let's switch out of that for a second, and then let's go look at some really cool shiny objects that happened there. So one of the things that happened is, excuse me, we got invited by the Vilnius University Life Sciences Department. They had a really cool panel with these different individuals, really interesting technologies. Dominicus is one of the scientists that we're going to have on the program at some point in the future. Rita is one of the angel investors that I met about 5 years ago, who runs part of the angel investment group. They actually were one of the most successful angel groups in Europe. In fact, I think that they held the top position in Europe, which is pretty interesting to think of, that you'd actually have this, little Lithuania with some of the most impressive angel investment activities. But what we got to do is look at a lot of different the labs and stuff like that. And I'm going to just I took some videos. I think it's interesting to see some of the technologies as they develop, as they're talked about, as they're shared and stuff like that. So I'm just going to take you through some of these. You can ask some questions at the very end if you like. I'll try to go through them quickly. I might cut off some of the videos because some of them might go a little bit long. But it's interesting to see when you think about this idea that we could solve all the world's problems. A lot of times people don't believe me about that, but I recognize that they don't believe me because they don't see a lot of these technologies emerging, and they don't, you can only, if you don't know about it, then it's hard to imagine that these solutions are within reach. So I'm going to share a few videos with you about it. First one is of a lab and two gentlemen that have built a lab for doing drug discovery. Let's hear from one of the founders about that drug discovery process.
So me and Dom, we are course mates. We're studying together in France. And then at a certain point during COVID, we were living in London, and we thought it'd be cool to start something in life sciences. So we came back, met these wonderful researchers, and started working on something that we think is going to help the world of drug discovery. So what we do in a nutshell is, with the equipment you can see over there, we can screen libraries of hundreds of thousands of compounds in a matter of a day. So for what before you would need a large team, a huge building, or robotic handles, we can do everything on a bench top that's the size of that desk, right? So with the help of that equipment, we essentially generate small droplets, and these are like bubbles. And inside of every bubble, we have a chemical target and a potential drug, and we can see whether that drug works or not. And we can generate hundreds of thousands of these bubbles in a day, right?
So one of the things that's happening about the bubbles, each one of these little bubbles, we're going to see bubbles bubbling up right here. Each one of these can represent a different drug that's being discovered. Let me actually show you the video because it's pretty wild that they have this visualization. And yes, this is not a computer graphic. This is actually really the bubbles going through the system.
Whatever we do, whatever inhibitors we have, and they run through the channels like this, and they get encapsulated.
So sorry for all the background noise. You can see there was a lot of excitement in the room. So then we went to another lab and got to see this gentleman, which is another one of the PhD students, talk about this way that they're using, they're building mechanical, well, I'll let him introduce it.
So basically an average human body, it consists of around 35 to 40 trillion cells. So that's approximately 4,000 times more than the number of total humans present on this planet. So you can clearly understand the importance of cells in our life, right? So these basic cells, just imagine if they're deprived of basic processes such as replication, transcription and translation. We'll be doomed. Believe me, we'll be doomed. So what do? That's exactly to save us. That's the place where we have DNA motors, right? DNA motors, those are our saving life grace. They are the chemical enzymes, or they are the versatile enzymes which help in converting your chemical energy into mechanical work. And that's their main important job. That helps in understanding the structural intermediates that are forming in the motors. Now you can compare these DNA motors, they have an uncanny resemblance to that of your car engine motors, right? So the car engine motors, they work on fuels like petrol, diesel, and the car moves on the road. Exactly. Now these DNA motors, they are exactly working in the same manner. They are using ATP. I hope you guys know, right, what is ATP is, right? So that ATP is used as a fuel to run these motors on DNA strands and cytoskeleton filaments, which is actually equivalent to roads inside our cells. Believe me, these are the next generation futuristic nano driverless cars. And I'm not giving a science fi movie pitch. Believe me, this is not a sci-fi movie pitch. And that's more than that. How do we understand them? The thing is that's the place where he comes in, the single molecular techniques. Those techniques help us to identify these motors. Because believe me when I say this, these motors are faster than the fastest man alive. Usain Bolt has a record of running 100 steps in 8 seconds. These motors can do it in 5. Believe me, they can. And they'll beat him by a pace. So these techniques actually, what we are doing, the different kind of tweezers, then we have fret, we have DNA curtains. All these techniques actually merge, although they are a bit complicated, but they focus on one important step, that is to study the structural intermediate in the reaction process of these specific motors. And in doing so, we are actually analyzing the energy expenditure in between the transition of these intermediates. So if we get a grasp of them, we get a grasp of everything. And believe me, compared to the car engine motors, which makes the unnecessary noises, these motors, they work in silence, and the human perform function and make the success of their voice. That's it. Thank you.
So as you guys all know, I put a lot of the researchers on, it's normal for me to put people on the spot. I'm like, hey, you got to tell the rest of the world about your technology. So these motors are really interesting. What we're going to do in the next 2 slides is see some short videos of one of the apparatuses that's being used to watch the motors. And then we'll actually see a video on the second slide that shows the motor activity, where you can actually see, if you watch it, you can see how the attachment has this spiral that goes down, picks things up. It's actually a strand of DNA, and then moves to the next stage. First, we'll see the apparatus.
So it's just like a super stable table, anti-vibrational. So we could actually investigate those motors. So we need all of that set up. Here we built a microscope. Believe it or not, it's a microscope. It doesn't look like a microscope, right? It doesn't have these binocular things. But it's like a completely homemade microscope, completely from scratch. It has this aluminum block, which we ordered in the shop, and they CNC milled it. They made these holes inside here. Then we use 3D printer, which is right at the back here. We printed lots of different parts here. This is light, LED. These are caps, the mirror inside there, camera. This is a piezo stage. Well, this is the part that we didn't make, right? We bought it, like, it's super expensive part, but it is capable of moving your sample at less than 1 nanometer steps. And we need that precision if you want to investigate molecular motors, right? So here we are, one of its kind in Lithuania and actually worldwide.
So the second part is, I want you to actually see on the screen as the motors are moving down, picking things up and going there. And when you start thinking about that this science is available, what is it that might be possible with this type of science? If you could actually operate inside of a single cell with these type of motors.
Particles, right? And right here, some of them are attached to DNA. I'll play this movie and you'll see that what happens right in here. See, some of them are pretty much like stuck on the surface, and like these ones are very mobile. They move around a lot. And you imagine what actually this bead, let's call it a bead. This bead actually has a single DNA molecule which tethers that bead to the surface of the microscope slide. So the result of this experiment is that we can mechanically control a single DNA molecule, right? And then we add the molecular motor, which changes the structure of that DNA, and then we can watch that action in live here on this microscope.
As well, it was interesting to see all the different nationalities represented in this lab. This is one of the top life science biolabs in the world. This gentleman is from Patagonia in Chile. And as soon as I picked up on his accent just a little bit, because I used to live in Chile and got to speak to him in Spanish, and it was really, really great. But he's got an oncology lab where they're using some of these same type of techniques to figure out how to overcome cancer.
A very minimalistic molecular biology lab where we basically take fragments of genes and with enzymes we mix them. So we are creating what we could call a chimeric gene. So what you would find, the type of devices that you would normally find here, it is
On some of the labs, I'm like, I'm not sure I want to walk in, but that's really cool. So I will tell you more about that. And this gentleman, again, really advanced science, originally started in Chile, now in Lithuania. Pretty interesting to see how they can solve problems. But there was one last lab that I really was moved by this one researcher that has these sensors. The sensors on the right are sensors that could be actually woven into fabric. They're so inexpensive that you could actually be wearing them in a garment, whether that garment was for a soldier or for just managing any of our individual health on a day-to-day basis. It's pretty amazing. And let's hear from her as well.
focusing on biosensors, on biofuel cells, and on biofertilizer. That means we try to generate green chemistry processes here in the lab. So for biosensors, we do have these. You can have a look, it's okay. And these are called screen printed electrodes, and they were made in UK, and we have collaboration in UK because previously I was in the University of Oxford, and now I'm back here to continue. And we can fabricate different kind of designs electrodes here. And some of them are coming from CERN, right?
Yeah, that's
So this one, yeah. And some of them coming from here, it's textile, so it's our clothes, and it can be used for biosensing. It can be used for saliva as a sensor. Sometimes it's called as artificial nose or artificial tongue. And also we develop different designs.
So the interesting thing about that last slide was, if you might imagine, part of the thing that's possible is having a set of sensors that are very, very, very inexpensive. And because they're so inexpensive, you could actually use them as just, are we testing for COVID? Are we testing for any kind of condition? That's partially what's so powerful about this technology, and about what you can actually do with these type of technologies. But the main point that I'm making about doing this little bit of show and tell, other than like I miss, show and tell back in as a kid, is a lot of times people can't imagine that if we built venture bridges around the world and we figured out how to open up these different markets, and instead of using our resources for this war thing, but used our resources for really solving problems, we really could tackle a different level of what we can even imagine right now. A lot of times, I think, because I have the benefit of, being in 27 different countries in the last 6 years, I get to see all these different technologies, and I'm like, oh, wait, that would have solved the problem with cancer for my loved one that just passed away. Or, oh, wait, that one would actually be great because now instead of having to send someone to a hospital, we could actually just have their garment figure out what's going on in their body, and it's low cost, right? It's like really amazing about what's possible there. So I wanted to share a little bit of that sort of stuff. The main thing is today is supposed to be a community conversation, and we have a lot of people in the studio, and I'd like to actually hear from some of y'all. It could be questions about any of the technologies we just looked at. Also, several of you we haven't seen in a long time that happen to be here. And I'd like to actually, just hand it over to you, whether it's questions about the technologies, anything else you'd like to know about Lithuania or South by Southwest, or just love to hear from you guys and, say something about what's happening in your part of the world. And if nothing else, I told Steve Galebraith, he's going to give us an update about his educational platform. Christy is in the house, so I'd hope to hear from her as well. Jose is our newest venture fellow. He's from Venezuela. I think he's living in Colombia right now, and he'll be joining us in Austin sometime soon. So I'd love to hear from you as well. Jorge from Guadalajara, certainly love to hear, just opening up. Who'd like to start? If nothing else, Christy, I already told you were going to be the default, so join us. How are you, Christia? What's happening?
I'm good. I'm good. I was watching with interest your visit, and I'm curious to know more about what happens next. After each one of these visits that you make, what are sort of some of the you come back and reflect, and what are some of the sort of first points of action that you could that you want to put in place when you return? What do you typically think about when you've gotten back?
It's interesting because it is evolving, and because a lot of times on the trip to Lithuania, there's not necessarily yet state support or any type of support other than the speaking fee that I received. I mean, the speaking fee is what got me over there. Mm-hmm. Now, I happen to know about Lithuania since I've studied it before I was there 5 years ago. I know a lot about the fintech activities, and I know a lot about the bio life science activities. And so this time I set aside a little bit more time for getting to look at shiny objects. And this time I took an expert in life sciences who happens to be my girlfriend, but she happens to be one of the United States top people for sales commercialization of life science type of stuff. She's a rock star and that sort of stuff. And it was a lot of fun to actually take her with me. So there were 3 different groups we were looking at. One of them was a conversation that's with the Office of the President. I actually was in the presidential palace. I'm not ready to disclose what's going on there yet because it regards conversations that are really cool, but not appropriate to disclose yet. The second was the actual conference itself. And there's a bunch of different things that happened at the conference that, just like all the fintech people I met, all the ventures, I did not know there's already ventures that are happening that have bridges between Vilnius and Austin specifically. And I'm like, wait, that's cool. So one of the VCs that was on the panel with me in one of the photos that I shared earlier was like, hey, you should talk to our portfolio company. He's based out of Austin. So we're going to follow up about that. There's some, again, very opportunistic things because a lot of times people can't imagine that solutions are there. So that will happen. They're, opportunistic around that type, that specific company, but then opportunistic around like 3 of the technologies that I just showed you guys. I know the guy at the Global Health Security Initiative or the Global Health Security Fund that needs to know about that technology, right? And so going to draw lines between the 2 and see what happens. So let's see, those 3 things: Office of the President, hopefully something interesting happens in the context of a venture bridge. Second, the conference and just follow up. And the third, the opportunistic things around individual companies and those technologies. I would prefer, and if anyone knows their local federal government, US federal government representative, I would prefer to actually have support for this type of stuff because there's a lot of support for large enterprises, but there's not a lot of support for this lower level, earlier stage. It's not completely commercial. It's science that's not completely commercialized, but it's just breakaway kind of stuff. I think we need to be spending more of our tax dollars around that type of stuff to do this type of discovery. Watch out, I'll get on my soapbox and talk about that a little bit more. But as an example, the biosensors alone, if you could just imagine that if we knew instead of, once a year, what was going on in our body when we go to get a physical, if we could actually, walk by what the researcher called a digital nose on every morning as you, after you brush your teeth, that it's just sensing what's going on in your body, right? I mean, that's powerful. That is powerful stuff. So I hope to actually make sure that the right person hears about that. There's a fund that I'm interested in that I'm going to introduce that technology to. And actually, one of the great things about it is, this is so silly, but I'll tell you about it because it's kind of fun. I was WhatsApping those videos to different scientists based here that are scientist venture guys, some of them that you already know that are in our community, saying, look what I found, look what I found, look what I found. And there was equal, excitement about it here in Texas. So nothing I can write home to mom about yet, but I got the postcards out to write those notes.
It makes me think about the community site that you've built and adding value to that. If there's a way to bring some of these things that you even just a list of companies and entities that you've gotten exposure to, as you were just showing us these videos, like sometimes it's hard to really believe and conceive of what's out there, but providing some of those, a quick breakdown of what each of those things are that you've experienced there, so that we even are aware that they exist. I think that could be really interesting and valuable potentially.
Yes, ma'am. I definitely hear it. And I just see Kim's comment as well. Second Christia's comment. Definitely, I'm looking to figure out how to best do that. One of the great things about my brain is I can see connections among the world, but on the other side, I'm dyslexic. So one of the last things I like doing is sitting down writing.
Right.
I am working on other ways of collecting information. Like I've got a lot of experiments going on with my voice to Chat GPT. And so we'll see what happens about that. Not just Chat GPT. There's a couple of other AI experiments that I have going on, but you're right. I think that's the thing. That is the thing that, like making startups or entrepreneurs on this side of the world be able to work with entrepreneurs on that side of the world where, Kevin and Tech Ranch are doing the discovery. Or if there's 4 verbs, discover, develop, connect, scale. Like, I love being on the away team. For those of you all Star Trekkers, I'm a geek, right? I like being the guy that gets to do the discovery, and then there is some next necessary development kind of stuff that's going to happen to then connect individuals. Like I know that one of the technologies, the biosensor, would be really applicable to one of the projects that Kim Johnson was working on in the past too. So, just because of that. So we'll definitely see that. And I'm working on it. Not fast enough for my taste, but yes.
Well, I'll pass it off to the next person.
What's happening in your world first too? What else?
Well, a lot of great branding work and brand development work, and a pretty big thing for me. I think following our discussion about creativity, I started reading more and getting further into something that had piqued my interest a couple of years ago, and I sort of stepped off of it. But work as and training as a creativity coach. So that is something that I am actively pursuing, and it feels just right. And I love this idea of bringing some of what we've talked about with regard to the inner artist and the perspective that creativity can bring to our everyday lives, but also to our work, the meaning that expression can bring to the everyday work that we do. Really looking at where those points of intersection take place. So that's what I've been spending a lot of my time thinking about.
Beautiful. Is there any preview you want to say about your program on April 20th?
Some of it, I will say that some of it is a little bit based on something my father created some years ago. He's a physicist of 30 years, theoretical physicist turned artist, found object sculptor. And he does beautiful work that I absolutely love. And he had this really fascinating presentation about atmosphere, light, and Van Gogh's Starry Night, and how the atmosphere and light give us art. And it's so I'm using a thread of his presentation that he developed some time ago, and that spurred a study that he did as started on as a physicist and then later as an artist, to further talk about creativity and flow.
Beautiful. I look forward to it. I'm excited about your presentation. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for joining us, and I'm always appreciate you being here in the community.
Thanks, Kevin.
Cool. Well, let's who else would like to say something? Jose, I told you that I was going to put you on the spot since you're one of our newest fellows. Jose is joining us. He's Venezuelan, lives in Colombia, going to be in Austin sometime soon. Jose, tell us.
Almost accurate. Almost accurate. I'm Venezuelan, but I am living at Paraguay.
Paraguay. Okay.
Okay.
So we have two fellows. One of them is living in Colombia, and the other one's living in Paraguay.
Nice. I didn't know that. So
yeah,
it's gonna be great to meet you all.
Yeah, perfect. Tell us about your background. I know you're working on a venture as well, because I saw it in your video. But tell us about it.
You have to help me remembering what did I say in that video. But yeah, indeed, I am production engineer, but more than that, I'm really passionate about digital transformation itself. I have been doing it by a couple of years, just like a hobby, you know. And lately, I started developing a platform where my dream or my goal is to enable digital transformation for most likely everyone. Allow people from any age, any gender, any background to digitalize their businesses. And it did a click with me when you were speaking, Kevin, when you said that not everything is about money, but what I caught was it's about purpose. You presented many awesome initiatives that most of them are related to health and many things. And I was like, wow, I don't do things as cool as that. But what we are trying to do in my platform is to help people to transform dreams into realities, making their projects to come true. So that's the point, right? It's about purpose. It's not about where you're focusing, but helping people to achieve something. So I'm really excited and thank you all for allowing me to be part of the community. I'm quite sure that I'm gonna learn a lot from all of you, and I'm hoping to also provide or share some of my views in here as well.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Well, welcome. Well, so you're already on the community site, right? So I want to make sure that you're on the, I think I sent both of you all the links and stuff like that. Nabby will be, our operations manager will follow up with you about getting you all secured into the process and all that sort of stuff. She's the person that makes sure that trains run on time. I just sort of wave my hands, but anything else you'd like to say? So being Venezuelan, living in Paraguay, you've got a perspective as well. Give us like a short note to give us perspective about that reality that your concept is emerging out of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I immigrated from Venezuela for several reasons, much more looking for new opportunities as a professional, but also as an entrepreneur. In a more stable environment, it will be like helping it sprout any ideas or entrepreneurship that one would have. But when you leave your home country, I believe that you become a man of world. I don't know if that's the right word in English, but like you start to become a citizen of the world. That will be the right one. So it's not about the place where I am right now, but about the place where I'm going to be in the future. That's why the wildlife helps you open insight for many other things. So yeah, that's pretty much it, Kevin. I believe that we are gonna have.
When do you land here in Austin?
It's gonna be on like 12 in May or something. We're gonna be arriving first Houston and then moving there. So get ready.
Yeah, it's perfect. Okay, perfecto. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So part of what I want to make sure that that everyone else knows is Tech Ranch has, we have both an internship program as well as a fellowship program. Jose is going to be in the fellowship program. Part of it is typically interns are people that are in school and things like that are like at the very beginning of their careers or are looking for some fundamental change. Then we have a fellows program where the fellow is like a active professional that has a background that's looking to plug in, where they're sharing back and forth. Part of what I'm going to be asking Jose and our other fellow, who's also Venezuelan but living in Colombia, since I got the two of them mixed up, is to deepen the relationships. I mean, I think most of the people that know me know that I used to live in Mexico and I've lived in Chile, and a lot of times there's been a lot of connections between English and Spanish speaking Americas. Sometimes we've left out the Portuguese speakers in Brazil. Lo siento mucho. But I want to make sure that we actually leverage our relationship to bring these peoples closer together, and Jose will be a part of that. So if you get a chance, make sure you reach out to him. He's on the community site. Jose, I'll make sure that or I'll ask Jello to tag you in today's Venture Outfitters, so that if someone wants to follow up and just say, hey, I'd like to hear more, and make sure that you post in the general channel about your venture so that people can interact and know you're there and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Count on that. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Que perfecto. Bienvenidos. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Welcome. Hey, well, it looks like Kim Johnson came off of mute. I don't know if that means that he wants to say something. Hey, Kim.
Hey, I can fill in a quick minute because the community has been very supportive of our work with moms and infants that are affected by substance use disorder. But we're on that product. We're very close to launching a quality improvement program, which is for 1,000 nurses in the Pacific Northwest to train them, and we're also going to measure how clinicians' attitudes towards moms who have used substances affects their understanding of how to provide care. So it's a really exciting application to make the training program a quality improvement program. We're close to expanding into Michigan, and it's just it's vital, it's valuable, it's just slow going in terms of getting through all the maze of hospitals. And then the second thing, like your conversations in Lithuania, stay tuned on the community channel. We're very, I don't want to jinx it. We're close to getting some additional grant, which will provide lots of resources for technology and escalate what we're going to need support on. And so I'm not going to announce it until the ink is dry, but we're making progress, and I'll be back in Austin at some time. And there, if you see the posting, what we're looking for when I get that out there, I'd be glad to meet with the people in Austin to explore how we can move some other businesses related to addictions forward.
So I got two follow-on questions for you really quick, Kim, and let me just mention to anyone else that'd like to do a shout out today, make sure you raise your digital hand so I know that you're interested, but I'm going to ask Kim two other follow-on questions. Kim, on the platform you're talking about training nurses, what's the implication of having this type of training? Why does it matter? What's the ...
So the ... is the incidence of substance use disorders among pregnant women, and also things like maternal mortality. The methods of care for these women are subject to stigma, and they're subject to a change. There's been changes in methods of care that dramatically reduce hospital costs, but they aren't worked through the system. So the issue is this training is to develop the role of nurse as coach rather than caregiver, so that when these new methods of care are implemented, the mom has resources that will allow them to bond with the child and stay with the child after discharge. Hopefully you get a twofer. You get a better educated mom, a more well taken care of baby, and you have a family that has a better chance of staying together and not going into foster care. So if you work this whole through, that's the objective. But from a hospital standpoint, it's tough for many hospitals to devote the resources to this with all the other things they have to do. It's a hospital management of the nursing staff is just a tremendously complex thing, and I don't begin to understand the complexities they have to do with. This is just one of 100 things they have to deal with in terms of staffing and things like that. So we hope to make it easier for them to accomplish that for this population. It's an important population, but they have many other things to do. So again, our goal is if you do this right, you get a twofer. You get a healthier mom and you get a healthier infant. And if they can stay together after transition, you potentially have less need for foster care.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, especially being here in Texas, right? Texas is not doing so well when it comes to taking care of mom and babies, based on, like, I think it was like 50th in the nation in certain categories about that. So thank you for the work that you're doing. The second question I have for you is, so I have seen this, I've seen that you've been pretty effective about leveraging the community, and but a lot of entrepreneurs that are in the community don't leverage the community that much, but you're one of the people that's doing it. Could you give them some ideas about how to leverage the community that's powerful for you?
Melvin,
yeah, say more. What do you mean?
Melvin is always open to ideas and open to quick, he's a connector. He understands quickly ideas, number one, and is willing to spend a few minutes to understand where you're at and connect you to other people. That's a short course in terms of that. Number two is, in fact, one of the people that you had on a couple of months ago, in case we go forward with this other thing, I actually am potentially, what he was doing. I try to listen to the presenters and see if there's something that I could leverage, as a small business person. And one of your other presenters, we may start doing some work with going forward. So it's just listening to what the options are, trying to provide, even if it's not your specialty, trying to provide a little bit of feedback. I can't help tremendously, but I love listening to Denise talk about her projects, right, in terms of related things. And I try to offer suggestions. I don't think they help, but I'll try. So try to help, try to listen, and if all else fails, contact Melvin.
Yeah, well, so there is the main thing for other people that are out there. Part of what Kim's pointing to, and Melvin, who is Melvin? Melvin's one of our edutech, education technology experts. He's right now watching the LinkedIn, because you just got a shout back on the LinkedIn stream. It says, "Thanks, Kim. I learned from Kevin." I'm not sure that he learned that from me, because I think he's an even better, he's a better digital concierge, just because of how he connects different people. But a lot of people are there to actually plug each other in and stuff like that. And the easiest way for someone that's listening, that's wondering about, the value that Kim just got, part of it is coming to the VO weekly program. And then part of it is online. It is a request channel, just pound request, that you can actually ask for anything you'd like. Or, in the pound general area, you can actually shout out and say, "Hey, this is what I'm up to," and just creates interaction back and forth. So thank you for that. Thanks for the work you're doing, Kim. And, the community exists for supporting people like you that are actually, building businesses, but building businesses that actually really support mother and child. So that's beautiful. So cool. Well, let's do this. I tend to put Denise Kern on the spot, and so she's in the office. No one else has raised their hand to speak yet. That's in the audience. So I'm going to call on Denise. Denise, give us an update about what's up with your venture and what you're up to.
Okay, well, I'm looking at, first of all, Celia, I think I don't know how she says her last name, Blazauer, Dr. Celia, mentioned when I first met with her that they have all these interesting pharmaceuticals and all that kind of stuff. And she said they cannot figure out how to teach the doctors how to use it. They don't have enough time. So that's the big deal. They've got lots of stuff that's newly researched and very effective and whatever, but when they present it to the doctors, they don't have time, first of all, and the doctors then do not use it because they don't know how to. So that's their task. And then when Kim just says, working with mothers and childs, it's a twofer. Kim, I'll be in contact with you shortly, because I think I can help you with that. There's some models that have worked in the past. One of them is from the Perry Preschool Project that was in the 50s and 60s. And they have continued looking at how that system worked for the last 60 years. They monitored the children and moms and dads that were in poverty that went through that program. They went to a childcare. It was a preschool. And they made it out by the time the kids were in third grade, you couldn't tell the difference with the disproportionate background that they had and that kind of stuff. So when you invest young, you can fix it. So what Kim's doing is really, really hugely powerful. So anyway, the other thing I think I figured out is how to sell nonprofit stuff. Like, you know, as a nonprofit, if you don't have the product to show, then they don't want to invest in it. Well, guess what? If you're investing in a person and their idea, then you don't have the product yet. But so trying to be able to convince others of the idea, but without it being controlled by then that group, well, then if you share your idea, then they own it. That's the big deal. But I think we can do it through scholarships and grants that don't have any parameters. Like, part of it we want is internships. If we want people that can direct a software and pull that all together and be the one that is the hub, and I guess we're having a lot of problems finding that. Well, then how about, you know, growing our own? Well, how do you do that? Especially if you haven't seen it before. Well, I think I know how to do that. So that's what I think our nonprofit can do, is maybe hook internships with funding, with cheaper development for businesses and ventures and things like that. And we'll teach them how to teach, so then they can pass it on.
That's a wonderful idea. I think that is going to be important. Is we need to have that be part of our community of practice about and that's partially why we're doing this internship and fellowship type of program at Tech Ranch. It's difficult to do without funding, but still I think essential to do as well. So that, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what I do. I think universities right now are especially the smaller ones, they're starved enough for people. They have people that want to know how to do stuff, but but they don't have the people that can teach them. And it's like, and you have to have hands-on. They have to be in an internship. So I think we got to figure that out. I think we can.
I look forward to that. Well, thank you, Denise.
Okay. Yeah, good to
Thanks for
see you
letting me
too.
put you on the spot.
Okay. What
Cool.
else is new?
Yeah. Well, hey, it's part of the whole thing. It's like that's partially what we're here to do, is to push each other gently.
Yeah.
Well, then let's do this. We're gonna have Jorge and Guadalajara close out with a shout out. Jorge, tell us what's up in your part of the world, and tell us about your venture and give us an update.
Hi everyone. Well, I was last week, actually this week, in Phoenix, Arizona, attending the Housing Opportunity Conference of ULI, the Urban Land Density. And I realized that there is a great opportunity in housing the on-house that is not exactly homeless people, but also in that. And I was wondering, I mean, I'm going to ask for a grant to make research, and I was wondering if Tech Ranch would be interested in giving support, especially like creative solutions regarding this. We're going to have funding for this. We're starting now, and next year the convention is going to be in Austin, ULI conference in there, and it's going to be around this time of the year. So there is a year to go in there, and we think that there is a great opportunity, especially with housing veterans that are not finding ways to have decent homes, and even worse with interest rates and everything that is happening now. So if anyone has this kind of solutions, tech solutions to attend the housing problem, the housing crisis that is happening in most American cities, we're going to participate with that, doing the net zero part and the net zero carbon part for housing. We're going to make affordable, resilient housing, and in a way that it can attend this huge problem that is happening now. That's what we're doing now.
Hey, Jorge, so there's 3 different shout outs or 3 different people that immediately come to mind. One of them is, of course, everyone's favorite Marine in the community, which would be Melvin. Make sure that you reach out to Melvin, because as a vet, he would probably be one of the first people that would know kind of some of the groups to tie into. The second is Austin's former Mayor Adler, Steve Adler would be an interesting person to connect with just because of some of the activities that he's done. Third person is RD, who's in the house right now and looks like he's on mute, and we'll hear from as well. And then the fourth person is Tammy. My girlfriend actually has been volunteering in one of the groups. RD, did you want to say something in response really quick?
No, I just wanted to, I'm not sure. I think we're connected on LinkedIn. Is that correct, George?
Yes, I think we are. Yes.
Yeah, I'll try and remember. Yeah, I spent some time homeless as a child. So from the time I was born to the time I went off to college, I lived in 43 different places. And I was just recently talking to with Celia Israel at lunch the other day about the homelessness issue. So we had lunch together.
Just so everyone has context, who is Celia Israel? Just
she was our former state representative for the state of Texas, and she was running for mayor and lost in a narrow election.
So, and one of the issues that she was promoting was specifically around homelessness. So, Jorge, use those 3 or 4 different connections to tie in. And
that would be awesome. Yes, thanks.
Yeah, I would be very happy on the behalf of TechCrunch to offer a letter of support for that initiative. The other person that I want to make sure I mentioned is his name is the 5th person who's working on a Section 8 housing initiative that's quite innovative, is Ravi Govind, who has been on. He's physically here at the at DualWorks today, and I'll mention really quick in passing. If you have just like what I'll do is I'll send a connection between the two of y'all and probably on the community because it's easiest to do there. But Ravi Govind has an initiative called Fair Deal Texas, which part of the Fair Deal in Texas is helping the unhoused get housed, or having housing. And he's got a really innovative stuff. I don't know if it's been publicly announced yet, so I won't disclose his model, but that he would be another person that would be good to know because of
what's his last name is Robbie Govind.
Ravi Govind, Govind. And yeah, Fair Deal Texas is the name of his organization. It's like awesome. fairdealtexas.com or .org or something like that. So that would be great. Cool.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Well, then I think I always enjoy seeing all of y'all, and I'm always motivated by everything that's everyone's doing. We went over a little bit today, but I think that part of it is because I ended up talking so much about Lithuania. And there's just so much stuff that, like sometimes I have to remind myself when I see the news, I'm like, oh, wait, there's really great things happening. And not only do I need to tell you guys about it, I need to tell myself about it too, just to stay excited about what's happening in the world, because there are a lot of solutions happening in the world. And part of it is for us to recognize that about our very own community. So that we can actually, support each other, because each one of you is doing pioneering kind of work, and it's hard to be a pioneer, especially alone. So with that, we'll go ahead and close it up for the day. Thank you for sticking with us as we went over a little bit today. But if you are not in the community yet and you'd like to get involved, techranch.com/connect. There is a place to sign up to the community for free. Also, we're soliciting vendors, as well as mentors, as well as country managers. We're taking this work to many more countries, because part of the thing that's happening is a lot of times the bridge gets built by a volunteer that's there first, that then in some cases, like the country manager has now become a business partner in a longer term perspective. So there's some really interesting stuff there. If you're interested, sign up and we'll get more information to you and all that sort of stuff. And sign up for our newsletter as well, because we're going to start publishing a lot more activities about what's happening there. With that, I'm glad that my voice made it through. I'm kind of surprised because it was pretty scratchy this morning. Thank you to all for being here today. And Steve Galbraith, I want to make sure we get a shout out from you as well. Actually, you
How
just
are you?
called on mute. I tell you what, I'll stop everything for a second. Tell us what's happening with Tappy. Can you come on the camera for a second?
I'm just driving right now, but it's going to be a car. Hold on one second. There we go.
Stop everything because I want to hear about what's happening in with this one.
Is that what?
Up. I think
So. Hey, thank you. I like. Hold on. Give me a second.
That's funny. I'm putting you on the spot, but that's what I do, right, Denise? Right, Christian?
Oh yes, it's okay. Hold on. Let me just no place to pull over here, but 1 second.
Don't worry about
let me just let me just go in. Let me just go into what we've been doing.
Yeah,
so that way it's a little easier. So
yeah,
so there you go. So we've been extremely busy like right now. So we built a platform where teachers, because they're leaving the profession, and I'm sure everyone knows teachers are leaving, that kids can get more connection with their learning. And when we do that, when we actually help connect learning more to kids, teachers are going to stay in the profession because it's just making their job easier. So we started first principle with this base platform that takes planning a lesson and eliminates about half the time where a teacher has to plan. So immediately saves them time. And now we've gotten really focused on the next like 3 to 4 iterations that we're doing based off of advice that we've gotten from these sessions and some of the top teachers that we've been talking to. So like right now we're working on an iteration where the teacher is going to be able to share lessons back and forth with his or her colleagues, it just with very low friction, which is just not something that can be done right now. And so our goal is by implementing these tools, hey, these teachers see that they can stay in the profession longer and that there's a career path that makes it easier for them. So we should have those phases released within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Super excited. Working on a few other things, but have gotten a lot of help from the community and just appreciate everybody. Jose, I'd love to hear about why you left Venezuela other than the monetary system there. Would like to learn more about that eventually, but welcome to the community. And just thank you for everyone.
That's beautiful, beautiful. Well, I tell you what, thank you for talking up, Steve. I kind of wanted to stop everything before we close things down. We'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and close things out. And if anyone wants to follow up, just a reminder, don't send me an email, don't send me a text. Go to the community site for today's Venture Outfitter Weekly. There, Jello will post it a little bit later today. Go to the website, and at the website, he will make sure that there's a tag to all the different community members, so you can actually go and message through the community. Just saves a lot of time for me, and it makes us puts us in a position that we can scale. So where you can actually start finding each other, discovering things about each other, going straight where you're not dependent on me personally for sending that email that says, hey, Melvin, meet Kim, or Denise, meet someone else. So what we'll do is we'll wrap up for today, but we'll look forward to catching up with you again soon. It's always my honor to be a part of a community of ventures that are driven by vision and values. Let's go change the world for the better together. Y'all take care.
Kevin.